So like Patrick said, my name is Simone Collins. I'm one of the Associate Directors for Mental Health. I'm the Director of Campus-Based Services and the Supervisor of Survivor Services. I'm so happy to have our students here with us today. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this today. I know it's a really busy time of the semester. So let's start with all of you introducing yourselves. Let's tell us your name, your year, and what you're studying here.
Cool. Hello, everyone. My name is Emma. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am a third-year undergraduate student at this university, studying community and nonprofit leadership with a certificate in criminal justice.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Stanley Kang, second-year master's student in the Department of Educational Leadership and Policy Analysis. I am also a first-year mentor for New York Posse with the Posse program at Madison.
Can you hear me? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Asia Henderson. I am a senior studying neurobiology and psychology.
Good morning. Woo, I am loud. Well, my name is Chu Fang Yang. My pronouns are he, him, his, they, them, theirs. I am a first-year student here, and I am pursuing an individualized major, and my take on it is activism through the performing arts with the lens of multicultural education policy.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dorcas Akini Jansen. I am a second-year doctoral student in counseling psychology, and also a Posse mentor for DC Posse 9.
Thank you. So today's panel is really going to focus on talking about your experiences at the university and how you've navigated inclusion and marginalization while being on our campus. So our first question is, how welcoming has the atmosphere on campus been for you? And any of you can choose to start.
I can start, that's fine. Something that I read once that stuck with me is, at a predominantly white institution, it's different from being admitted and accepted. When I first got here, I definitely felt admitted, but I did not feel accepted when I first came here. It was very hard for me to find a support system outside of my home. I didn't come on a scholarship, I didn't come with friends, I didn't come with anyone. So, like, immersing myself in this community, it wasn't as accepting as it was for my peers.
How did you manage to navigate that?
Well, seeing that I'm a senior, I ended up trying to find my own way and figuring out who to hang out with. My biggest support system ended up being the sorority that I joined. I ended up finding another family outside of the family at home. I'm not from far, I'm from Milwaukee. So at first, my sophomore year, my freshman year, I was going back home because I wasn't that comfortable on this campus. Like, I tried to make my way, but it wasn't the same. I saw my peers having a lot more fun than me, and it was kind of just like, it was kind of dreadful. And I'm also STEM, so most of the time I was the only black student in my classes, and I was used to being the smartest person. Everybody wanted to be like, back in high school, like, and I went to a predominantly white high school as well. But it was different when I came here. Everyone wanted to be my partner. I came here, I was in chemistry, everyone looked at me like I didn't know anything. We would get in groups and discussions, and people would not want to partner with me, and they wouldn't know how to solve problems, and they would ask everybody but me, and I usually knew how to do it anyway, so then they're like, oh, like, she does know how to do it. After I teach the whole class how to do a problem, it was hard to navigate myself, but I think I got it my senior year.
Thanks for sharing.
So as I said earlier, I am a first year, and I am still in that transition period of high school to college. And I think overall, kind of going back to what Asia said, like, yes, I am admitted, but no, I am not accepted. Because just the way the school is set up, and yes, I understand that there are amazing resources out there for students to use, and yes, I understand that there are safe spaces. I found, and it's important to note, just before I continue, it's important to note that us students up here, we are talking about our lived experiences, and our lived experiences do not speak for those students who are not here today speaking. These are only our experiences, and these are one of many that go unheard, and I think that's super important to remember. But anyways, I think my experience has definitely been very different from yours because unlike Asia, I came here with a lot of friends, and I am here with an amazing program, Chancellor's Program. It's amazing, and I love it. And I see familiar faces. And I think, especially the Chancellor's Program has given me that sense of companionship and has given me that sense of family. But at the same time, I also came here with a lot of friends from my high school, and so we all like hang out and we all make sure that we're checking up on each other. And one of the biggest things I found, like to navigate that feeling of not being welcomed or that feeling of not being validated within the classroom and without the classroom setting, is instead of me trying to find my places on campus, I make my places. And I think that's really important because a lot of times we tell students of color or students with marginalized identities that you can find your place on this campus as long as you look for it, but we shouldn't tell them to find it. We should tell them to make their space their own. And Carl Grant, which is one of the most amazing people I have ever met, he works for the university. I remember him telling and asking me and my class a rhetorical question, and the question was, when are you going to make this campus yours? And I think that's really important because instead of me trying to fit into this campus, instead of me trying to be accepted into this campus, I feel like I should just come as I am, and I will fit where I do, and I will not fit where I don't.
Thank you.
For me, I've been here on campus for almost 10 years. I came as an undergrad student and now I'm in my PhD program. So when I first started, I did come with a group. I came as a scholarship recruited athlete. I ran track for 5 years. And at that point, I did feel actually quite welcome within my sphere, and that was specific to only my sphere. So surrounded by athletes, I always had friends, I always had people that I could lean on, felt even wanted here because of my skill in athletics. However, the second that I entered a classroom, the second that I entered a study group, the second that I entered even my apartment, that sense of belongingness sort of disappeared. It was similar to your experience, Asia, talking about how in groups, in class, I was an outcast. Not only because I was the only person of color, but because people didn't want to work with me, people didn't want to hear my voice. And if my voice was out there, it would be disputed or be shut down. And not even only by students, but by professors, more than on one occasion, which is unfortunate because I think that following up with your point, Shufeng, making your space, it makes it really difficult to make that space when you are shut down. And the people that you are to look up to guide you are the people that are actually doing that. I think that it's gotten in a lot of ways more difficult to navigate the university as a master's and PhD student. I think that in my department, for example, every person of color has been held back, including myself. Or has dropped out of the program altogether. So just in and of itself, that's a sign that things aren't working. It can't only be all of us, but there must be something going on more systemically.
Also, I'll be walking around, and if people have questions, you can raise your hand. You can also come up here. There's a mic over there if you want to ask our students some questions.
So once again, my name's Stanley. I came in with the Posse program, the first New York STEM Posse that the university recruited. I was among one of those cohort members. And I remember within the first month of me officially moving into Wisconsin, there was an incident at a restaurant in which I was sort of compared to Psy, the man with the Gangnam Style sort of video. And I was struck, right? He came in here, he thought he was going to be funny. I was with my posse and my mentor, and we were all having a family meal together, sort of, getting ready to kick off the semester. And here comes this gentleman sort of making a racially charged joke. So just to imagine how I must have felt at that instant, at that moment, at that time, right? We can't imagine what you would feel like or how I would feel like if we were in each other's shoes. But it was because of my mentor, it was because of my support system that sort of made it possible for me to overcome the first hurdle, right? And through my long journey in my undergrad and now as in my graduate career, there has always been more hurdles along the way. And I wouldn't necessarily say that each hurdle was more difficult than the next. I would say that the hurdle was different in each context. And with the support of my posse, with the support of my mentor, they were able to help me navigate how to overcome those hurdles that were inherently different. Not necessarily inherently more difficult, but inherently more different. And I think that's what mentorship really provides, is we are able to provide how to navigate those tools to really help students overcome different things. Because I think any student that gets admitted into the university, we have the potential to do amazing, great things. But that always shows, here are the 10, 100, 150, 1,000 factors that will always act as barriers to us not persisting, not retaining, not graduating, right? And again, those are all inherently different problems, not necessarily more difficult. But that's sort of the caveat, right? The differences and the impact that we perceive the challenge, to us, we may perceive as different or more challenging or more difficult, right? And the underlying fact in all of that, I think, is based on sort of a deficit of courage, deficit of self-motivation. And that's what my mentor was able to provide, because she already recognized that I had the potential to not only survive, but thrive on this campus, right? But if I had that potential, where was that getting lost in this university setting, right? What was overshadowing my perceived potential in this space, right? So just instilling students with that motivation to make sure that they are motivated, to instill them with the confidence that they should have, right? And to be that person to show them along the ropes that you matter, you belong here, that this space is really yours. I don't know, just a lot of things.
So the first thing that I will kind of talk about is the intersections of all of my identities. So with my privileges on campus, I walk around as a cis person who is white, and I see that represented in faculty. I have access to women's labeled restrooms in every floor of every building that I go into, and it's easy for me to access those. And some of my marginalized identities with my womanhood and, for example, like my class status, all of those things are constantly intersecting to give me a unique experience on this campus, but it is super important to recognize that I have those privileges. The thing that I've helped to navigate those experiences is learning that our liberation is bound together, and we need to take people as whole people and consider all of them. And in my academic settings, and I also work at the Multicultural Student Center, we really do focus on intersectionality and seeing people as whole people and recognizing their experiences, and that's been very important for me in holding my responsibility and finding my community moving forward towards social justice.
Thanks. So you shared a little bit about sort of how you've built a sense of community on campus. I really like what you said before about not just surviving, but thriving here. So tell us a little bit more about ways that you think other students could not just survive here, but thrive here.
I think one of the biggest ways that I help my peers and my friends and myself not just survive but thrive is that we actually come together. Just because for all of us, like wherever we go, in every classroom, we're most likely the only student of color. We're most likely the only person with more than one marginalized identity, with more than just one complex background or one complex aspect of our background. And so after classes, like all of my friends and us, we just get back together because there's a comfort in being surrounded by people whose minds are as brilliant as yours, and there's a comfort with people who actually understand the different experiences and who know that, you know, we are culturally diverse, but we are also individually diverse. And I think one of the biggest ways I try to help those who I don't see on a daily basis is that I speak up. And yes, there are times when, because I speak up, I am seen as that person of color, as that social justice warrior, as the person who brings everything back to the institutionalized racism and the systemic forms of oppressions that we face on this campus. But the reason why I embrace that identity, the reason why I embrace the low blow is because it's something that's necessary. And the only reason why I am seen as that person of color is because people choose to be that ignorant, and they choose to not understand or not even give me the opportunity to explain where I'm coming from. And like Emma said, there are so many different intersections with my own identities. So there are so many different ways that oppressions and privileges alike work for me and work against me. And I think speaking up is one of the biggest things I can do to not only help myself and people before me, but people who are trying to come to this university, people from my high school who have personally told me that, yes, I want to apply to UW-Madison, but I'm apprehensive because it is a predominantly white institution and I don't feel safe. And they feel as though once they get here, they're going to be so voiceless, and they feel like they're going to be so overlooked. And one of the biggest things I love doing is telling people, like, you have a voice in more than one way, and you can use it. And I feel like that's been super beneficial in not only making my own spaces, but also dealing with every day-to-day things and feeling like I belong.
Something I personally have done to thrive on this campus is loving myself. When you come here and you feel like you are oppressed or you're marginalized, you have to be so strong in yourself and love yourself and compete with yourself to really succeed. So if I'm like, my peers, they don't want to be my competition, that's fine. I'm my own competition. I'm going to go in this class, I'm going to get an A, I'm going to show everybody how to do the problem, and they're going to be like, wow, like, okay, she's really like, she's smart, she knows what she's doing. But once I tell myself every day, my end goal is to be a dermatologist. I know what I have to do to succeed. I know what I have to do to get where I need to go. So if I tell myself, and I constantly tell myself that I can do it, I will do it. You don't have to always have someone telling you that you can do something, because the deeper root is that maybe you don't believe it yourself. Once you anchor that in yourself, that I believe that I can do it, anything that anybody else does, it's not like, how am I going to get oppressed this way? How am I going to get oppressed that way? How can I overcome it and prove to everyone else that I am who I can and want to be? So once you come into this university with that mindset, like, I'm going to be the best person in this situation, then you'll be able to overcome a lot. And that is how I've taught myself to thrive, because as an 18-year-old freshman, it wasn't that deep in my heart that I could do everything, because there was a lot of things pushing me. But push back. You got to push back. And once you do that, nothing is going to stop you.
So one of the things that my mentor taught me, and one of the things that I'm teaching onto my mentees, is to normalize things, right? Coming from high school, going to college, enrolling in Chem 103, 104, 109, right? Chemistry is hard, right? And in high school, we sort of stigmatize, if you're doing poor in academics, then you're gonna go to tutoring, right? Tutoring service sort of becomes that it's because you're not doing well, you're going to seek that advice. But on the flip side, when we get to college, it sort of switches, right? You go to tutoring services to get more services and more resources to make sure that you're understanding the level of thinking in which your faculty expects from you, right? So normalizing talking about how tough the rigor of this institution is, right? Not shaming it away or passing it away like, if this student is getting an A, then you should be getting an A too, right? I don't think we should be comparing successes here, because obviously not everyone is from the same place. So normalizing toughness, normalizing roughness, and learning how to talk about your problems. I think when it came to me, and what I'm noticing with some of my scholars, is we don't know how to talk about our problems because we were always used to figuring it out, right? And once we hit that barrier where we're still trying to figure it out, but we still don't know, right? guidance, again, mentorship plays a really big role in helping you identify and navigate this challenging landscape of what we call the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
All right, go ahead.
I think a lot of people have touched on this self-empowerment, this motivational piece of thriving here on campus. I do think that in developing that motivation, that empowerment, that self-love, that and even learning how to talk about your problems, I think it's really important to scaffold those experiences in yourself. And I think that for me, it's been going to therapy ever since I started the master's program, ever since I got out of my group of people where I felt safe when I was no longer an athlete. I have sought out therapy, sought out mental health services. And of course, there's been talk on the stigma related, the barriers related to seeking out services that often disproportionately affect people of color than they do white individuals here on campus. So I think that lessening those barriers, even for yourself, is a part of that self-love, is a part of that empowerment that I think develops some of these skills in understanding yourself and understanding how to assert your needs, how to be an activist. That is really important for being able to thrive here on campus.
So I'm a little biased as a counselor, but I want to second, yes, mental health, come see us. So we also have an audience question. Have you had an experience with a well-intentioned majority population authority figure who was not helpful, even though they thought they were being helpful? What do you wish they had said instead?
Okay, so, that question. It has happened a lot, and you know, when it comes to situations like that, there's always the challenge of, yes, you have good intentions, but no, your execution is 100% and utterly wrong. Like, yes, you tried, but you tried and failed. And, you know, A for effort. But I think in those situations, especially on this campus, where people in power or people who have that authority or who have the ability to hear you out and make a difference, when they come to the table with a savior complex, when they come to the table with a closed-mindedness, when they come to the table thinking, I am here to hear you, but I am not here to help you, that's when it makes it so much harder. And so there are times, even in my own classes, in my own experiences with professors and administrators on this campus, where you know, you have these resources and the campus boasts about how these resources help, you know, support the idea of diversity on this campus, but then you go as one of those people with marginalized identities and you go and try to use those resources, but you're met with, oh yeah, okay. And it's like, don't give me resources if those resources don't actually work. If the people behind those resources don't actually care for my well-being and they care more for the reputation of this campus. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I've had to learn is that, yes, there are resources, but not all of the resources actually work. And it's sad, but that's the reality, is that we have so many people who are willing to help and who are willing to listen, but they don't actually carry it out.
Sounds like you're saying vet your resources and make sure there's someone who's here for us.
I had an experience during my master's program when I worked at University Health Services. And I look at Rihanna because she's shaking her head right now. But I had a supervisor that actually called me into a meeting that was facilitated by the lovely Rihanna Washington to discuss how I was making his job more difficult. So by just virtue of me being there, he was he discussed how he was so intimidated by me and my presence that he was making mistakes in his own job. So, yes, and so I of course had a similar reaction. And I thank God for Rihanna, who was able to help me shift my energy to be something more helpful in the moment. But it's tough. I mean, I had this job because I was working to help people. It was an alcohol risk prevention program that I was working with, so I wanted to be there for other undergraduate students on campus. But unfortunately, I was microaggressed in this way. Of course, I mean, I think I'm happy that this person was able to sit down and talk to me about it. But of course, there's also a sense of ignorance or even entitlement in the discussion as well that left me with the residue of the conversation rather than being able to feel more empowered by my work environment. So one example for me.
Okay. All right, so I'm aware of our time, and so I just want to take a final moment to say thank you to our students for being here today and for sharing your experiences. I think it's really important for us to know what's been happening for you on campus and for us to be thinking about how we can make this place feel more inclusive and feel like a place where everyone can call it home. So thank you again.